your instant match reaction for Manchester United 3, Everton 1 in the FA Cup. The Blues go out of this competition. It will be 28 years without silverware, but I feel like we all think that there's bigger things at play going on at the moment than that. Joining me to talk about the game and what potentially inevitably might come next, Lyndon Lloyd from Toffee Web, Rob Vera, and Dave Downey. Lyndon, I'll come to you first because I sort of asked everybody then when we came on the call, what did you think of that? And everybody just kind of went, meh, yeah. And it was one of them, wasn't it? It's one of those games you shrug your shoulders at and you go, well, there was a bit more there than Tuesday night, which wasn't hard. Endeavour was there, aggression was there. There was some good play at times there in the second half as well, but ultimately we're out, and that's clearly disappointing.
Yeah, it's one of those matches, isn't it, where you expect us to lose. Your expectations are really low. If we go through in our current predicament, which obviously it's got a lot worse tonight, depending on how Alex Iwobi comes out of that match, do we need a replay? Do we need to continue in this competition? I mean, obviously we've been in Joe Raw's time. The FA Cup was a way of sort of bolstering our league form, but it doesn't feel like it would do us any good this year. But I hate that attitude of, we can concentrate on the league now, but I can't really escape that feeling either. In terms of the game, there was so much more than I was expecting from the performance. I thought Amadou Onana was excellent. I mean, Damari Gray was fantastic. Even Neil Maupay, who I thought, obviously I think he had to come off for Calvert-Lewin, but I thought he was holding the ball up quite well and getting stuck in. But ultimately, I think if you're Farhad Mashiri, assuming he even watches these games, if you're looking at that and you're needing to base a decision on Lampard's future on that match alone, I don't think he was, but that was obviously the rumor coming into it. That kind of leaves you in a very, very gray area, doesn't it? Because there's plenty of things that you could look at from that performance and use as a platform. Assuming that he now sticks with this formation, which was so successful at Manchester City. He looked really good tonight at times and was completely binned against Brighton. There's things you can build from on there, and if you can get the recruitment right this window, and that's a whole other discussion, of course, whether there is anything even in the pipeline. But it's still not well-coached teams in many regards. I think some of the defensive, defensive decision making, the way that the defense is set up, I think there's plenty to criticize there. But overall, there's reason to be optimistic about what we saw tonight. But then you take Iwobi out of that, and even though he's been really out of sorts the last few weeks, he's still our most creative player, and he's still perhaps our hardest working player. And you take Iwobi out of that team, and I think you've got a team that's really struggling for form. There's now had a key component taken out of it. I just come out of that match thinking, okay, we're out of the cup, great, but where do we go from here? And that's really the thing that actually is more concerning than losing tonight. It was just what happens going forward in the Premier League.
Yeah, and we obviously will speak about Frank Lampard and what that means a little bit later on, because as Lyndon mentioned, there were reports that his job hinged entirely on this game, which felt ridiculous. But Dave, what about you and the game, just in general? You said, I saw you post on Twitter that we were actually, to quote yourself, surprisingly competent there, and that's kind of how I felt in spells of the game. Maybe not throughout, because there were spells where the glaring holes in our team, and Seamus Coleman, bless him, up against Marcus Rashford, and then Garnacho later on, I felt a little bit sorry for him, but one of them where it felt, given what we've seen from this Everton side and where they're at the moment, it's probably about as well as we could have expected them to play.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel a lot more optimistic after that than I have done in recent games. Even I thought we played better tonight than we did getting the points away at Manchester City. I know a lot of people probably disagree with that, given the fact that we got a point there and then went out to the FA Cup. First and foremost, my thoughts on it, I don't really care about the FA Cup this season, given the position that we're in, given that we're in the bottom three. given that we've got a horrendous run of fixtures coming up in February. I actually think the next 3 weeks in January are going to be the most important of what we've seen so far this season, and going to be crucial heading into the deeper second halves of the Premier League. I felt that if you were to analyse that game based on what you saw from it, I thought we were a really tough side today. We broke United down quite well. I thought Damari Gray started to look like Lionel Messi at times. He hasn't got the final finish that any top class player has got. I think that's blatantly obvious. I think that's been obvious throughout his career. I've got a couple of friends who are Leicester fans who've said the same about him. That sometimes you look at him and think, how on earth has he not scored all sorts of goals or played international football or looked like a top class player at times? And I think tonight you saw the better side of him than the Jekyll and Hyde that he shows a lot as an Everton player. But nonetheless, I thought he was our best player tonight. Look, if you're that bothered about the FA Cup, because let's face it, I don't think we're going to go and win it. And I think winning tonight would have only really given a few people momentum going into the Southampton game. But that's the one ultimately that I cared about a lot more than this. And then if you look at the way we lost tonight, and then it comes down to the fact that, you know, a hair's breadth between Calvert-Lewin scoring when he comes on, and I think a really piece of poor defending by Seamus Coleman that allows them to score their second. Otherwise, we might well be looking at a replay, and I don't know about you three guys, but a replay in the FA Cup, given that we've got much bigger fish to fry, wouldn't have been a happy ending from this game. So I'm trying to focus a lot more on moving away from the results, from going out to the FA Cup. Look, this is not Everton's season to win a trophy, sadly. You know, it's the, what is it now, the 31st one since we last won one or something like that. That's not what happened to me. I was a lot more enthusiastic about what we have going forward here. And let's face it, enthusiasm isn't the word to use amongst any of us, given what's going on with the board, what's going on with Lampard. Is he staying? Is he not staying? There are a lot of questions yet to be answered, but I thought tonight the players, everyone that came on, looked like they gave a real shit about Frank Lampard as the manager. So it's changed my mind a little bit, because on the weekly we discussed a little bit earlier this week, I think we all come to the conclusion that Frank probably needs to go. Some a lot stronger than others, some certainly a lot stronger than me, because I think that there's so many other circumstances that have caused the way we are. His inexperience is what cost him, in my opinion. And that's ultimately what many people will say why he needs to lose a job. But tonight, I think you saw 12, 13 lads actually working as hard as they possibly could for him. So that was a big surprise for me. And all eyes now go towards Southampton. We do that against Southampton, we'll beat Southampton.
Yeah, Rob, I mean, we were speaking yesterday on Subs Weekly with Alan, and you said that, you know, it's never been a case of these players not playing hard for Frank Lampard. It feels like they have been. It's very much like what was going on towards the end of Marco Silva. It felt like these players like this fella and want to do well for this fella, but it's just not there, and it's just not happening. And I think that kind of summed it up tonight, didn't it, really?
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment. I sometimes wonder what it's like to, you know, like whatever the Blue Room equivalent is for City, you know, like, you think that over the years they've gotten kind of exacerbated, you know, or I'm sorry, they've gotten exasperated by, like, I don't know how many different ways that we can talk about winning, you know, like we just win in the way that I have a bowel movement every day. And so it just, you know, I'm kind of bored with this. And so on the other end of the spectrum, down towards hellish misery, is us. And I don't know that I can come up with more ways to talk about losing this much, and do so in a way that is as insightful as anything that Lyndon and David just said. I mean, I think Lyndon, I think you're trying to squint and find something out of this game. Dave, I think you are too. And yeah. I applaud you guys for that. Hey, if you guys want silver linings, we've got some. Okay. Focus on the league, even though we don't want to talk like that. It maybe is a good thing. And, we played well at portions, during portions of the game, but when you haven't won a game since October, it's much more difficult to hear anyone say, well, I know we lost, but if you'd seen the game and then blank, right? Like, like explaining away the losing or contextualizing it matters less and less as you lose for longer and longer periods of time. And I mean, it comes down to, I just keep thinking about these last few weeks and how just bizarre, like not even bizarre, but just kind of reminding me that this is a team of flickers. And what I mean by that is that there are teams who flash, skill, effort, like Crystal Palace earlier this season, where you have a game that's like, well, where did this come from? Everton don't even do that often enough for us to say that they're a team that flashes this brilliance, and you think that there might be something there, but they're just not consistent enough. They're less than that. They flicker. They had a few moments, like that goal we scored that was ruled offside tonight was the first time I found myself saying, get the fuck in I don't know how long. Like I was like, that was a beautiful goal with lots of flick pass behind my back and great
running and
finishing off
all at the same time. It was ridiculous.
I mean, it just, like completing more than 3 passes in a row. I felt like I was drunk. I mean, it was, and even with DCL finishing off the chest, the whole sequence was so great. Even more mystifying that Decore was part of that. And of course it was offside. I mean, it's just, Everton have just flickered these little moments. Some of them go their way, but then the one time they have it for the first time in forever, it's an offside goal. Everyone is lauding the result against City, which hey, getting a point at City is great, but let's also be clear that we had one shot on goal in that game, and it had to be a wonder goal to score and give us a draw in that game. We get absolutely trucked by Brighton at home. We lost this game by 2 goals, and we had Connor Cody with a brace tonight, and he's even his goal, it's not really, he's Johnny on the spot, and you need guys like that. But even his goal was because De Gea had an absolute blooper reel for that equalizer. Like it's just there's so little to cling on to. And if you're looking at tonight and saying, well, they're still playing really hard for Everton, or for Frank Lampard rather. Hey, I love that. We always say that, hey, that's the minimum. If they'll work hard, we can forgive almost anything else. Well, I think we've proven this season that working hard and losing a whole bunch of games doesn't really make anyone feel much better or feel better about the losing, right? So the bottom line, Matt, as we discussed, I think it was yesterday or the day before, I've already lost track of time, is that regardless, kind of like with Silva, regardless of how hard the manager is working, how much he's getting them to play, how meticulous the preparation may not be, the end result just isn't there. And I have said several times that I think a large percentage, if not the majority of that, is on the players. I think that meaning that this squad doesn't have enough talent to play a cohesive system that works. Now, I also don't have evidence that Lampard has one of those systems. He has, he goes to 5 at the back, and tonight's everyone's like, why hasn't he been playing that all season? But I also remember we were waiting earlier in the season for him to go 4-3-3 because we were tired of 5 at the back. Like the bottom line is that none of these ideal formations, and God knows he's tweaked quite a bit lately. Like none of it's working. The players aren't good enough, and his ideas aren't good enough to overcome this chasm of talent. The only question now is, will the next manager be able to squeeze just enough, and tell me if it sounds familiar, squeeze just enough out of this cast to get us over the finish line and survive the league? That's we're just right back there again. And so if we can't do any meaningful recruitment in January, and the signs are pretty ominous so far, with Alex Iwobi hurt, everyone should be scared. Regardless of if you've been underwhelmed by Iwobi lately, you should be scared right now, because that injury looms very large over Everton's survival now.
Yeah, that is a huge blow, and obviously hope it's not as bad as it looked in real time, because it did look absolutely awful. But you know, the one player I wanted to speak about, Lyndon, because I'm sure everyone's interested to talk about Frank Lampard and what we think is going to happen next. But you know, the Gray was excellent, as you know. You think you've all alluded to there. You think he's been playing pretty well since we came back from the World Cup. But with Iwobi potentially being out for a while, how important was it that Abdul Corey came on today and seemed to remember that he was an actual footballer again? Because I think when he came on, it was one of them where you're like, oh God, you know, this fella again. Because whenever he's made his cameos in recent weeks, it's, you know, it's not been great to say the least. But it was just sort of like one of them, like, oh yeah, there he is. I remember you. You used to be actually quite a handy footballer. Actually scored a really good goal at Old Trafford a few years ago, and here you are doing it again. And he got a booking for a very soft tackle, which maybe, you know, hindered him a little bit. But if he's going to be playing in central midfield in a 5-3-2 or 4-3-3 or whatever, with Iwobi out injured, I just think it was dead important for him to get those minutes on the pitch, and not only get those minutes on the pitch, but get them playing well and being progressive and helping Everton push for an equaliser at the end there.
Yeah, it was really important because, you know, I mean, most players need a run in the side and minutes to sort of get into a groove. And it's, you know, it wasn't that long ago that Abdul Doucouré was our most important player. You know, when he went out injured, we thought the ceiling was going to fall in. So,
the fact started last season, wasn't it? Like that's when the decline started last season, wasn't it? When he got injured.
Yeah. So it's been quite funny to sort of see him fall so far off a cliff that, you know, I think he was being prepared to be, you know, shipped off to wherever the Middle East or whatever this month for a nominal fee, and now it looks like he could be a very important player for us. I mean, he's never going to replace someone like Alex Iwobi either in terms of his engine or his creativity, but you know, I think as he showed tonight, he can be an important part of a team that's going to have to wring every last drop of creativity and effort and organization out of itself if we're going to survive. And I think, going back to what Rob was saying about us sort of clutching at straws and trying to find the positives from tonight, I think you have to do that if you believe we're going to stay up this season. How is it going to be done? It's going to be done by drawing on more of what we saw this evening from the likes of Doucouré and Gray, you know, and sort of at times Connor Cody. I think Seamus Coleman coming back into the side was something I would have called for regardless of whether Nathan Patterson got injured, because I think Patterson's been struggling of late. And again, Coleman's sort of coming in cold, and he too will need some time to sort of get back up to the speed of things, particularly at his age. So we're thin in a lot of areas, and we're going to have to, as I say, draw on everything we can. Nothing's changed really in the fact that the recruitment, whatever we can do this month, is going to be huge. It was always going to be huge, but now we have to add goals, and we have to add creativity as a must now. With Iwobi out, but yeah, having an informed Doucouré, actually, you know, operating in that box-to-box role that I think we thought Onana might be able to fulfill, but now I think we know where Onana's best position right now is, and that's how he played tonight. Because I thought again he was exceptional, and more of that, please.
Yeah, I thought he was brilliant as well. Maybe his best game he's had for us, but. Just be interested to get your thoughts on Doucouré as well, Dave, and potentially, do you look at this system and this setup and think it's got to be the way forward for us now? Because I just put that on Twitter, and I had a few people say to me, "Well, you can't play like that against every team. You know, you'll get teams coming and playing against Everton that you'll need to open up against." But I'm sort of the view now that probably in the Premier League there are 16 or 17 teams better than Everton at the moment, and if we're going to play defensive against teams that are better than us, then we're going to probably be doing it most weeks. So it just feels like a more natural fit for the defenders for me. I think it allows you to get Ben Godfrey into the team. It allows you to get two players up front, and it would be, brutally honest, the wingers are just not cut it as well. So it just feels like the right way forward for us at the moment.
Yeah, I agree, because if anyone is turning up at our matches, season ticket holders, whatever, whoever turns up, Everton fans, You can't turn up expecting to enjoy the way in which we play. I think everybody needs to get that on their mind immediately before they turn up. It's a case of necessity and what we need to do rather than what we want to see, and the nicer things. Excuse me, the stuff that is okay and nice to watch is what basically Damari Gray's done for the last couple of games, and I still don't think he's the type of player that is reliable upon in that sort of thing. We saw Anthony Gordon come on as well. He's going to be, people like it or not, he's going to be heavily relied upon the end of this season. But just on your question about Decore, I actually probably disagree with the three of you, because I think there was a little bit of a cameo performance from him today, but I just think at times when you watch him, the way in which his body language is, I think it looks obvious to me that he doesn't want to be at the football club, and I think he goes through the motions when he's there. Look, I thought at times when we thought we'd scored the second goal, he was pivoting how he did that. When Iwobi went off, he came on, and by and large, I think it was generally fine. But if we're going through the rest of this season, or the majority, I don't know, 80-90% of the second half of the season to go with no Iwobi, and you've got Decore who is replacing him, I don't think Everton are going to be staying in the Premier League.
Rob?
Yeah, I hear Dave on Decore. I think we are constantly as a
Can
club.
you trust? I don't think you can trust him, Rob.
Oh, no. I hear you on that. I think what I was just thinking about was that we are constantly as a squad put in these kind of increasingly compromising positions, and it's almost like it's been an evolution over the last few seasons that's kind of continuously pushed us into where we are right now. So like, we've had times where we have had too many center halves, too few center halves, too many midfielders, too few wingers that couldn't score, or strikers that couldn't score but wingers who could. Like, we have these problems that just seem to ebb and flow to the point where you don't have a particular position through in the midst of these last few years that you can say, yeah, but that part of the pitch is pretty set. The closest thing we've had to that this season, outside of Jordan Pickford, which is kind of almost too obvious, has been Alex Iwobi. And that's what's so cruel about this. And then to compound that, and this gets to Decore, I thought he looked good today when he came on overall. He contributed. He made some things happen. I don't know if that means anything. That's one half in a game we lost by 2 goals. Like, what matters more now, and what frankly now matters whether we like it or not, is that Decore is now set to play quite a few minutes. I don't see James Garner coming back anytime soon. I don't know that you can rely on heavy minutes from Tom Davis in search of creativity or goals or what have you. And so come on down, Abdoulaye Decore, right? And what makes it doubly cruel is that we're thinner in midfield. We're playing a guy that I think we were looking to sell this month. And so what's cruel is that if we've been offered any kind of fee for Decore, that would be like a huge bonus for us. Now we're in a position where I don't think we can actually let him go. And so it feels like a double whammy. We're in that weird position of like, I wish we could sell Decore, but we can't sell him because if we lose him, then we're screwing ourselves even more for relegation. So like, we're always confronted as a squad, seemingly always, with these just series of bad choices to make. And that's kind of cropped up once again tonight.
We'll finish off by speaking about the manager. I had a few messages of people just wanted to be recording this saying Lampard looks like he knows he's gone there. I don't know if any of you guys have seen what happened at the end in regards to him going over to the fans and how he was and what he said afterwards or not. But I put it on Twitter sort of saying, what is that true? What does it mean? And people sort of said it, different reactions. So maybe not want to read too much into his body language and what he said. But Lyndon, go feeling, mate. What do you think happens now? Is he going to be in the dugout for that Southampton game, or do you think the club will act over the weekend?
I mean, you can only go off past actions, right? And
what would you think?
What's that?
What would you do?
Oh God, what would I do? I can't get the Brighton performance out of my head. That was obviously my previous trip to Goodison was the win over Palace, and that could not have been a starker contrast to what we witnessed on Tuesday night. I just saw a team that has no idea how to get the ball past the halfway line on a consistent basis to create chances. It was humiliating. I had my 16-year-old daughter, who's never been to a game before in her life, saying she was just saying, oh my god, wait, no. And so that's the part that concerns me. I said, yes, okay, fine. We can set ourselves up away from home against good sides with a 5-3-2 formation and grind out a draw here or there or a scrappy defeat. It's the matches that we have to win at home, where teams have clearly got our number. That's the part that concerns me about Lampard. Does he have the chops and the experience to get us out of this mess? And obviously, with no prior experience of it, you can't answer that question. And the evidence to this point, with only 3 wins all season, is no. Is he going to be in the dugout against Southampton? Probably yes, because as I say, we've seen inactivity and hesitation from the board. There's no sense from anywhere that they have a replacement lined up. If they had a viable replacement that we could all get behind and sort of recreate some of that support and enthusiasm that we had when Lampard himself came in a year ago, then I think that is the foundation and that helps us get out of it. Right now, I think asking the fans to recreate what we did last season in getting us out of this mess, I don't even know where that energy and enthusiasm comes from. I think the fan base has been bled dry of that, and the only thing that would rekindle it is a managerial appointment that they can get behind and trust to get us out of this. So will they sack him after this? Probably not. Should they? Probably, but it's all dependent on who comes in and replaces him, and that's a whole other argument.
Dave, same question to you, really, mate. Like you said, you spoke about it a lot in the week, and I suppose it's a difficult one, isn't it? If the board have put everything on this game and said, right, if we get beat and play badly, we'll sack him. If we do all right and get a replay or go through, we'll keep him. What you do when the team play relatively well and you still go out, it's sort of one of them. And for a club that seems to make decisions on a whim and on a short-term basis, I imagine they're probably just scratching their heads going, well, what do we do now then?
Well, the fact that tonight, the decent effort, the decent performance, the reason we probably should have deserved a draw from that game, that doesn't take away the fact that should it be that hard for Everton to be able to put out a performance like that? And the answer is no, it shouldn't. To put in an effort like we did tonight, that's all I would call it, is an effort. It was players fighting for each other, fighting for the shared, the traditional sort of stereotypical things that we say a lot about good Everton sides down the year, is sort of that we're not giving in attitude. That should be bread and butter, and it hasn't been under Frank Lampard. So, taking in some sort of context of how we played, Everton playing like that tonight has surprised me. In as much that it was decent, there was effort, and there were chances created. That was probably the best way we could get a result at Old Trafford tonight, despite the fact that we still lost. And there is a credit that goes to Lampard for that. But you can't excuse everything else that we've done, including, I thought Brighton was down there with when we lost 5-2 against Liverpool in Silva's final game. Koeman, it was against the various ones. I remember we did that podcast. I will never forget it. Me, you, and Mark Mosley talking about us getting beat 1-0 by Burnley that year in 2017, Matt. That to me felt like that stage for me. That final bit of rope that Lampard had was simply went away, and I thought that was it. I thought he might well have been sacked by now too. In fact, I'm quite surprised he wasn't, because it would have given us ample time to appoint somebody else. But then again, given everything that everybody's been speaking about with letters and whatnot that we've signed, and about the board, can you rely upon them to get a new manager in within less than 10 days to play a crucial 6-pointer in the relegation zone against Southampton. That's the pickle that gets me. But overall, in answer to what I think should happen, I don't think Lampard's good enough to keep us up in the Premier League. I think the thing what happened against Palace last season, and we did stay up. And I think a lot of that was down to fans, like many of us have said in the past, that or the reaction there was when we went to Goodison that night that got these players over the line. I don't know how much of that you're pointing towards Frank Lampard. Everyone will have a different opinion about that. But you're in that position less than pretty much halfway through a season, and you're in the bottom three. I don't think that he's capable to do what we did last season. In many ways, you'd rather have less games to try and save yourself like we did last year than have half a season to try and put yourself right, because there's that much work to do in a January window where we still need to sign players. We've had one of our best ones there probably put out for the rest of the season in Iwobi. As much as we banged on about Decore and who else can go in there, James Garner when he gets fit, it is crucial for us to go out and get a central midfield player, someone who can fill in for Iwobi in any sort of similar way they can, because I don't think we have enough players, we have enough time to be able to get a James Garner in there and say, right, you're going to do what Iwobi did for us. This is such a huge miss. Probably up there with the headlines, or the headline of tonight's game is him being out for so long. I would get rid of Lampard. I would have done it before tonight, probably straight after Brighton, to be fair. Now the predicament is getting rid of him. We've got, 8 days before we play a 6-point game against Southampton. The question now becomes, I think, Matt, you quite clearly say you want to get rid of him, but is getting rid of him and getting a new manager in, sorting out a new system and him meeting the players that we've got, ample time for us to be able to put a squad together and go and beat Southampton? Or do you look at Lampard and think, you know what, he's got a steer out of them against United. Surely that means you at least let him go to Southampton, see if we can repeat that at home and take the 3 points. It's a really, really big predicament that a gang of clowns that we've banged on about for the last few weeks have got to make that decision. So I'm not backing out by any sense of the imagination, but I'm really smack in the middle of all this, whether you get rid of him before Southampton or let him play it out. I mean, I don't know what you guys think. I think we all agree he probably needs to go. But when is the crucial part of this question, isn't it?
Dave Downey with splinters right in his arse there, sat on that bench.
That's never happened to me, Matt, as you know.
Rob, our friend Mark Mosey just texted me during this saying, did that cross the sacking threshold? And I suppose if you'd be looking at it like that, you know, if Brighton didn't tip him over the edge, then maybe tonight necessarily isn't going to. It'd feel weird to sack him after tonight and not after Brighton, wouldn't it?
No, I don't. Well, yeah, it's kind of an.
You're doing the same, Rob. You're doing the same.
So only Lyndon's committed to an actual answer here. Come on.
What about
No. I'm not doing the same. I was going to say that yes, he should have been sacked after Brighton. That was the moment. That he's somehow gotten this extra game. I think if it was a league game and not an FA Cup game, maybe he's already gone, but he was already a dead man walking after that. That was the quote catastrophic moment. And you know, tonight again, no one's going to remember anything but a 3-1 loss in a third round knockout of the FA Cup. No one's going to think back on this and go, yeah, but remember that game a few years ago? We played better than the scoreline made it look like. Like I just think it's all a little too late. Too late. I'm with Dave. Lampard's got to go, but I think that it's okay to have some very nuanced feelings about this, which is that Frank Lampard was done dirty by the people that he works for to some degree, in terms of, or to a large degree, really, and I'm trying to be consistent, Matt, because you and I have been talking about it since the summer. I said when a lot of people were high-fiving about that window, I said and I'm not alone, but a lot of people kind of were like, yeah, but we did all these other things, so it's okay that we didn't sign any goal scoring, goals to essentially replace what we were losing scoring wise with Richarlison. I mean, they basically, treated Frank like a dog, where they poured a glass of water on him, threw him out the house in the middle of the winter, and said, hey, good luck. And I think two things at the same time. One, I don't think that Frank Lampard is a talented enough manager. Maybe it's because he's, it could be for a variety of reasons. Some guys have it, some don't. He played for a front runner. He's been a front runner, for most of his career, and it's hard to do that. But I think he has adapted and adopted the club and the fan base and done all the right things in terms of what he says to the media, and he gets the players to play hard, which makes it more tragic that he's just not a better manager. And so I'm of the opinion that he was not done right by what he was provided with. He got one window, and may not make it here out of January. I don't think he does. In fact, I don't think he's in the dugout for Southampton. And it's a real conflicting thing, because I found myself liking Frank Lampard and rooting for him. I wanted him to be good, not just because of Everton, but because he was a much more likable manager than some that we've had in this, unending run. But the bottom line is that this is ultimately a results-based business. And in the same manner that it's not ideal to lose your best outfield player this season in Iwobi in a game like this, it's not also ideal or fair that we have to consider sacking a manager a week from 8 days from a 6-pointer game that's going to be incredibly important, and none of it's ideal, but they're going to have to try to find someone who can new manager bounce this thing into some level of safety. And you get the sense that we're really not going to know we're safe until probably safe or not until we get much, much closer to the end of the season. That's where we're at. Frank Lampard's got to go. It's probably someone like Dyche, which is sad, but needs must, whatever.
This is where we see the real Dwight
NSNO, guys. NSNO.
No, I just want to make a good point there on what you mentioned there, Robin, in terms of getting rid of him. Surely the time is the thing that's more important than agreeing that he actually has to go. Because if you look at the next 2 weeks, these are two huge 6-point games.
Yeah.
8 days away, we've got Southampton at home, and then a week after that, we've got West Ham away. These are the teams we are fighting relegation against.
Yeah.
And can somebody honestly, and this goes out to our listeners as well, at what point does getting rid of Lampard make sensible sense of having a manager with enough time to sort this team out for those two crucial games? So I'm essentially asking you,
do it tonight.
3 days ago.
Yeah, do it tonight.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. You would have to do it tonight. Matt, you mentioned this weekend. You have to do it then. And even then, you have to have that new manager set up already. So the gang of clowns that are going to make that answer need to do that tonight, tomorrow and Sunday. Get the new gaffer in for Monday to train up the team in a completely different way to the one that had a half-decent effort against United tonight. That is the reason why you were saying that I had the splinter up my arse, Matt. That's exactly why I'm saying it, though. Because there isn't an immediate solution where I think, yeah, this will work this way. So that does draw you back to thinking, well, hang on, Lampard did get a tick out of these guys. Do you leave him in for this? And then whilst we're doing that, going towards Southampton, the board, whoever, Mashiri, whichever gang of Muppets it is, who's making the decision whether he stays or goes, can then do the business of getting a new gaffer in. We play Southampton, hopefully get 3 points out of it. Even then, you're then saying, well, hang on, he's just won against Southampton. Does that mean we have to keep Lampard? Be really harsh to sack him now. Which way does this go? I'm going nuts thinking about this. What would any of you guys do? And if you're saying he needs to go, when does he go for you? For
Tonight.
Everton to have enough time to sort out 2 big games coming up.
He goes tonight, and Lyndon, to your point about how he should have gone a few days ago, I think they probably decided a few days ago. Why they didn't just axe him then, I don't know. I mean, who knows? But
do you think they've got anyone else lined up?
Buy the most. The only look, if Moyes was available, they'd get him. If we hadn't already hired Allardyce, we'd probably get him. And so then enter Sean Dyche, who can come in with his back five, and and his whatever his football is. But you know what though? We don't have the luxury right now of. We don't have the. I mean, I don't like Sean Dyche. I don't really. I mean, he's got some good taste in music, but I don't. I think the way he plays sets up a team to play football is caveman stuff. And I'm told by there are smart people who think I'm crazy and that Sean Dyche is actually this unrealized genius. But we gave a lot of people rolled their eyes at Roberto Martinez for being relegated with Wigan. So I don't know why I can't be rolling my eyes at Sean Dyche, who got sacked before his team got relegated. So look, bottom line is like we'll have time to quibble about whatever zombie retread manager this thing brings in here pretty soon. But I'd love it. And by the way, if I look at what is happening with Marco Silva at Fulham, and I just want to once again say that the problem is us, guys. It's not, when I say us, I mean the fans, but I mean it's Everton. It's not. I don't think that Frank Lampard's as good a manager tactically as Silva, but would it shock me if he went somewhere else and succeeded wildly just because that's what happens to us? No, nothing would shock me. But he's got to go. They've got to figure out someone, I guess. If you don't do it now, Dave, to your point, then you almost have to stick with him for the next 2 games. Like what would be the point of letting him have Southampton and then sacking him before West? Like it's got to either be now or after those 2 games.
Well, that's it. But I just want to you double back on what I said there. I'm not saying I want him to stay. I'm saying
I know
Everton have to think really, really carefully, which they won't, about what point you do all of these things. I mean, Matt, you're telling me I've bottled it all day. You haven't answered me yet. Would you bin him now?
No, probably not. Because I think what I said was that if they had any inclination of sacking him before that 6-week break, they should have done it then. And if they didn't, they should. They've got to stick with him. The thing, because I don't think we can have a situation again where we get to Southampton, West Ham, whatever. We make a decision around then, and then you've got the January transfer window as well to factor into all this. We've got. Will we have a player in by then? And if that player's come in, will the new manager like them? And I think it's all wild and crazy. But
that's why we're going. That's why I think we're going down.
Lyndon, you've been sat patiently listening to all that, mate, laughing, shaking your head at me. Final words to you on the whole thing, mate. I mean, what do you want to pick out from that?
My final word is I just don't know, and I'm glad I don't have to make the decision. I have enormous sympathy with Lampard, because a lot of the problems sometimes are just individual errors and you just can't legislate for that. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with him. If they've made a decision, just get it done quickly. Rip off the Band-Aid, get someone else in. If they haven't, then I don't know. God help us. Let's see what happens over the next 2 weeks. But I don't have enough faith that Lampard will be able to pull it off. And so for that, from that perspective, I hope they have made a decision. They have someone lined up, and it all works out.
Yeah, it's more like after Tuesday night, I would have said sack him, because the new manager's got 10 days then to work for the next Premier League game. But now we haven't got that, and we've got another 3 days going to the January transfer window. What is it? January the 6th now. It'll be midway through the month by the time we play our next Premier League game. It's ticking away, but. It just feels like, difficult one, but next week is a huge, huge game. At least we get the weekend off anyway, lads. Don't have to worry about Everton. Can watch some other sports maybe. We'll get a nice break at the end of January as well when the 4th round's on. So
there's a woeful time of year for any other sport though. There's always a bit of cricket going on, isn't there, in Australia?
NFL on Sunday, Rob.
Yeah,
as well.
week 18. I'll be watching week 18. So
Hey, we had the Old Firm derby last weekend. That was really good to watch.
oh yeah, I watched the second half of that. That was pretty good.
Really good to watch. Yeah.
Sadly,
it's not happening again.
That's a bucket list, by the way. I want to go to that game sometime.
Oh, same, absolutely. Matt, how good was it when we went to the Edinburgh derby? How good was that?
It was boss, yeah. Maybe Ange Postecoglou. He could be a shout.
He's up there. If you look on the betting list, he's up there.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole now.
If anyone knows, if anyone knows how I can watch some good football, please email me or message me on Twitter. Okay, thank you.
There we go. Send all correspondence to Rob Vera on Twitter. Cheers to Rob, Dave, and Lyndon. That has been your instant reaction. Defeat for Everton. A few positive signs, few things to clutch at, as Rob said. But we are out the cup, and who knows what the next few days will bring in the circus that is this football club. Cheers for listening. Speak to you soon.